Welcome to Aging Insight with your host, John Ross and Lisa Schollmeyer. This program is made possible by
Welcome to Aging Insight, everybody. I'm your host, John Ross, here live in the studio with Lisa Schollmeyer, and you're watching Aging Insight, the single best program related to issues on health, housing, finance, and legal stuff related to, getting older, basically planning for and living in retirement, protecting your assets, maintaining your independence, not being a burden on your family. All of those things we know that you've got concerns about, we know that there are solutions to, and we know that you need the information that we've got to get you there.
That's right, and that's why we like to come into your home through this program on Aging Insight. That way you can catch this information from the comfort of your home and maybe learn a thing or two and pass it along to a friend. But it is our passion to get this information out to you. And John, we all hope that we need this information in the sense that I hope someday to become older and a senior and a retiree.
Sure.
So, but there's an old saying that I heard my grandfather always say, and he said, there's nothing for sure but death and taxes.
Well, that's true.
Okay, well, I'm going to amend that saying a little bit today. There's nothing for sure but death, taxes, and a government busybody wanting to know about what's going on in your life. How's that?
I'd say that's the modern equivalent.
Right.
It certainly is.
So, and John, our practice, our elder law practice is based in the Texas-Arkansas area. And, the Texas legislature, the governing body that passes the laws for the state of Texas, they only meet every other year.
Yep.
And, people in Texas say, thank goodness they only meet every other year and not every year, because we'd have even more laws if they met every year.
Right. If you hire people to make laws, then they go down and make laws.
Right. And so our Texas legislature has been busy at work, and there are some new laws that have come out that will impact our Texas viewers, or also people who have loved ones who live in Texas. So today we're going to talk about some of those new laws that really, I just don't have any other word for it than being a busybody.
Well, and what, even if you're not in the Texas area, you should be paying close attention, because the rules that we're describing, although we, as you will see, are quite strange and severe, they're actually mild compared to some of the rules in other states. And of the states that are less strict, guess which direction they're heading?
Yes.
And so this information, although is somewhat Texas specific, it really is related to everybody, regardless of where you live, because the one thing I can assure you is you don't want to find yourself at a courthouse when it could have been prevented.
Right. So so a lot of the rules and laws we're going to talk about today could be coming to a state near you.
That's right.
As well.
And all of this relates to what happens if you become incapacitated and can no longer handle your own affairs.
Right.
And this could happen to anybody at any time.
That's right. So when we talk about incapacity to handle your affairs, we're talking about, not being able to grasp the nature of the business that you're doing. And that can come in a lot of forms, and it can come on gradually. Maybe you've lost the ability to balance your checkbook, or you're just not able to get your bills paid on time, or you've entered into some, door-to-door salesman type contracts that when you were younger and on a better day, you never would have entered into a contract like that. As people age, the reality is we all are going to generally face some incapacity. Some of it may be mild, some of it may be more severe, and then of course anyone of any age could, be in an accident, have an illness that incapacitates them. And once you're incapacitated, but you're still here with us, you're still breathing, how are you going to take care of your business?
Yep, and all of this comes back to a problem where medicine and law do not mix.
Yes.
The oil and water.
Yeah.
and that's because, if you talk about medically speaking, somebody might have the capacity to do some things,
Right.
but lack the capacity to do the other, right? Maybe they can handle their own medicines, and they can still vote in an election. They know who they want for president. They probably shouldn't be driving a car, right? So they have the capacity to do some, the capacity to do and not to do others. That's medical. Medical is all gray.
Yes.
All gray. Law is very black and white. When a person turns age 18, they are legally competent.
That's right.
Period. That's it. Even if you were in a coma on your 18th birthday, that very moment that you became 18, you are legally competent even though you are in a coma. And at that point, nobody has the power to do things on your behalf any longer.
Right. Sign contracts on your behalf, sign medical consents on your behalf. When you're 18, no matter what your true level of competency or capacity is, the law says that 18 is a magic number, and you are now considered an independent, capable adult.
And here's what I always get when I say that, Lisa, is I'm talking to somebody and oftentimes it's a man. Maybe that's just an attitude. I don't know. I'm not saying, but oftentimes it's a man, and they'll say, "Yeah, but that's my wife. I can handle all her stuff."
Right. Something happens to her, it's my wife.
Yeah, I mean, if it's my wife, I can do it, right? No. If you've ever tried to call the phone company and it's in your other spouse's name, you know for a fact that they say, "I'm sorry, we're going to have to talk to him for a second,
right.
or we got to talk to her for a second." And you've got to go and hand them the phone, and that's because you're an adult, and if it's in your name, that's the only people they're going to talk to. And so legally, turn age 18, you're competent. The problem is, if you are medically completely incapacitated, but you are legally competent, we have a problem.
Right. So we end up in a situation where we have an individual who doesn't have the ability to make business decisions and deal with money or property or manage their medications, but they're an adult, so nobody can really tell them what to do or substitute their authority or judgment for this person. So we've talked about this a number of times on our Aging Insight program, and we talk about how everyone, if you were 18 or older, everyone should have a durable power of attorney in place and medical powers of attorney so that you can select who would be your substitute decision maker if for some reason you are temporarily or more permanently incapacitated. So everyone should have a power of attorney. The new laws we're going to talk about today really come into place when you don't have that power of attorney. And John, just from our experience, would you say that most people have a power of attorney, or most people don't have a power of attorney?
Most people don't. No question about it.
Right.
Especially if you're talking about everybody 18 and up. So this guardianship, that's what we're going to be talking about, and the rules that have changed to make this guardianship even worse than it already was. And so you're going to have to stick around and catch the rest of the program if you want to find out more about that. We'll be right back.
Lone Star Truck Group is now hiring service technicians. We also have career opportunities in every department. With 23 locations across the South, work where you want. The best product lines in state-of-the-art facilities. Work with the best employees, receiving great benefits, competitive wages, and a safe, clean work environment. Receive ongoing product training for continuous career development. Contact Lone Star Truck Group today and recruiting at LoneStarTruckGroup.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Aging Insight. I'm Lisa Scholmeyer here with John Ross, and today we're talking about some laws that have already changed in Texas regarding guardianships and the way that courts will pick someone to handle your affairs if you are incapacitated and have not executed a power of attorney. But the same type of laws have been very popular, and we expect them to be implemented where in many other states, and some, Texas was a little late to the party. They've already been implemented in several states. So today we want to talk about the burdensome things that are going on in this area of guardianship. Now, to refresh you, a guardianship is a court action in which someone, typically a family member or loved one, goes to the court, and once they realize they cannot handle your business or make medical decisions for you, this loved one can apply to the court for a finding by the judge that you are incapacitated and that this person who has applied should be appointed as your guardian to handle your business affairs and to make medical decisions on your behalf. And so this is a public proceeding. It is a court proceeding. And John, the way I always talk to clients about this is anytime I'm having to go to the courthouse and through a proceeding, you might as well hear the cash register ringing because it's expensive.
That's exactly right.
And it's a time-consuming process. And did we say that you can avoid this with powers of attorney? Okay,
yes.
We did.
So let's start out with basically what this process looks like, right?
Yes.
So you've run into a wall. You're trying to do something for mom, for dad, for husband, for wife, for your own child, whatever it is. But you can't do it, and everybody you're saying, well, you've got to go be the guardian. You got to get these letters of guardianship or some business like that. Well, the first thing you're going to do is hire a lawyer. And this is not self-serving. We didn't make these rules.
Yeah, no, we didn't lobby for them.
We didn't lobby for them. But the rules actually require that you have not just an attorney, but an attorney that is specifically certified to do guardianships in the state of Texas.
Right, and so the attorney you hire must have already taken some classes and received a certification that they can handle guardianship cases. That's another new rule that came out a couple of years ago. So not every attorney can even handle a guardianship matter. But John, the very second thing you're going to do as you are looking to apply to be a guardian is you're going to get online.
That's right.
You're going to get on your computer or your iPad, but you have to get online, or someone has to help you get online, because you're going to have to submit all of your information and register with the judicial board that governs guardianships in the state of Texas. First thing you have to do before you can do anything else, you have to register. This is one of the new rules. So now we have kind of a busybody down in Austin who now they're making a list of everyone who is applying to be guardian, whether they live in Houston, Texarkana, or Beaumont. The folks in Austin are now going to have a list with your personal information and contact information, and you have to do that before you can take any other steps.
That's right. Then you're going to go ahead and get this application for guardianship filed.
Oh, wait, you forgot something, John.
What did I forget?
We got to take a class.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, see, the new rules are so new. But once you get registered online, now you have to take an online class about what it means to be a guardian and what things are going to be expected of you as a guardian. And you have to complete this online class and get a certificate of completion. Now, John, how many of your clients say 50 or older, have had any experience doing an online type of instruction?
Well, I think we have 2 clients in the office right now at 107, 4 or 5 more at 100 or above. The oldest are 107, and a bunch in their 90s,
Yes.
more than I can count.
Yes.
And I would generally say, not true for everybody, but I would generally say that most of the ones, most of my 85, 90, 95, 100-year-old clients, not doing a lot of online coursework.
Right. So, and from my experience, John, navigating the registration of the guardians and this online class is very clunky.
Yes.
We have had, folks call and just practically in tears because it just wasn't as easy as they thought it would be, just because the websites are not very user friendly, I don't think. Supposedly they're going to work on that. But so we have these, so you got to get online, register, you got to get online, take a class, and now.
Yeah, now you can submit your paperwork. Of course, there's filing fees and stuff like that associated with all of that. And the court's going to hire another attorney. This is called an attorney ad litem, and their job now is to go out and investigate. So now you got 2 lawyers in your deal.
Right. And then, furthermore, if you're needing to handle your loved one's business, John, I think about these couples that have been married 45, 55, 60 years, okay? And one of them is now incapacitated, and their spouse is needing to take over for their business to handle things. And John, under the new laws under Texas, if the liquid estate, so that's cash, investments, retirement accounts, things like that, if the liquid estate being dealt with here is more than $70,000, then whoever the guardian's going to be, whether it's a spouse, a child, a neighbor, they have to get an FBI electronic fingerprinted background check. And they can't be appointed guardian and handle any of the money until this FBI background check is returned to the court. And John, do you have any idea how long that takes?
It can take a while sometimes.
So, in these laws, John, I think they come from a good place in the sense that, we want people who are honest and, upright to be taking care of someone else's money. But I get really frustrated when I look at these couples who've been married forever, and now a spouse who's been managing the money really forever now has to go get an FBI background check that can take up to 3 months to get back.
Yeah. And assuming you've gotten through all of this and you've got the appropriate medical documentation and the attorney ad litem that the court has appointed has looked at the situation and agrees with the guardianship, and you've gotten through all of this, then you could get to a hearing, and maybe at that point you get appointed as the guardian, which is the start.
Right. It's the start of your obligations to the court.
Yeah.
So I guess, John, let's take another break, and we'll come back and talk about your further obligations to the court and how those laws have changed. And maybe by the end of our show today, everyone will have a very clear understanding of why powers of attorney are so important. So we'll be right back.
Lone Star Truck Group is now hiring service technicians. We also have career opportunities in every department. With 23 locations across the South, work where you want. The best product lines in state-of-the-art facilities. Work with the best employees, receiving great benefits, competitive wages, and a safe, clean work environment. Receive ongoing product training for continuous career development. Contact Lone Star Truck Group today and recruit it at LoneStarTruckGroup.com.
Welcome back to Aging Insight, everybody. For our last segment here on the show today, we're talking about guardianships, and you're trying to help out your husband or your wife, your mom, your dad. You don't have any powers of attorney in place, and so now you're stuck going through this court guardianship process, and just to get started, you've hired a lawyer, you've taken an online class, you've done some online registering, you've done an FBI fingerprint background check, the court's hired another lawyer to investigate this whole situation, you've gotten all kinds of medical evidence to present to the court, you've had a hearing, and at the hearing, presumably, if everything went right, you've been appointed as the guardian.
Right, you've finally been appointed as the guardian. But that is not the end of your obligation, because now the care and supervision that you're providing to your loved one or the ward involves you, the ward who needs your assistance, and it involves the judge of the court that you got appointed as guardian from. And the laws require that you continue to report the condition of your loved one, as well as your expenditures from the estate and accounts of that individual. And in fact, you have to ask for permission to expend funds that belong to this now incapacitated person. So if you are needing to get care and assisted living, or pay for sitters to come into the home, or maybe you need to build a ramp onto the front of the house so they can better navigate, you're going to have to get permission from the court for all of these type of expenditures. And then at the end of your first year as guardian, you're going to have to file a very detailed report with the court and ask the court to review it, and if they approve it, to continue your appointment as guardian. So, John, and now we have Austin involved, at least in the state of Texas, where they have the list of who all's a guardian. And so even if your local judge is your best friend from your Sunday school class, and they know what's going on in your life, they really can't cut you any slack. I mean, this is a very detailed procedure, and they are just not playing any games with this.
No, so you should be getting the idea that this is a giant pain in the rear. What you're seeing in other states that have had these kind of very strict rules, places like Nevada, for example, is you end up with professional guardians, people who go through all of this, and then that becomes their job. They do this for a living, because no ordinary person can navigate through this. So you end up with professional people, and guess what's happening? Those professional people are becoming the abusers.
Right.
They're financially exploiting these elderly people. Now, not all of them, but the ones that are hitting the news certainly are.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, that's it's almost one way or the other. Without all these regulations, you have financial exploitation by every fool around, because they can go and have you declared incompetent with nothing. They pass all these rules to make that sort of thing more difficult, but what they make it difficult for is the good actors.
Right, your loving family. It's so difficult and burdensome to be able to become a guardian, that they just can't get it done in time to meet the need for their loved one. And so these professional guardians, and I use that term loosely, they've already been through these processes, and they have been designated by the state that they can serve as a guardian for anyone. And so many families are having to reach out to this stranger in order to get a guardianship in place quickly enough to address the needs of their loved one. And John, what it comes down to is a stranger is involved in your affairs.
Yep.
Is involved in decisions for the ward of where they live, what kind of medical care they get. And don't forget that those professional guardians, the reason they're called professional is because they get paid for their services. So while a family member would be willing to serve and care for their incapacitated loved one for no fees, no charge, it's just their love and affection and honor and respect of their family member, these professional guardians, they don't do it without getting paid.
That's right. So keep yourself out of the courthouse, right? You do that for incapacity with making sure you have really good powers of attorney, financial, medical, those sort of things are the keys to keeping you out of the guardianship process. And notice I say good ones. This is not the time to go pulling stuff off the internet. It would be like trying to figure out how to do surgery on yourself. And a bad power of attorney is no power of attorney, right? Small investment on the front end to get really good powers of attorney will avoid a thousands and thousands of dollar mistake, and not to mention having some bunch of strangers, one of which wearing a black robe and calling him or herself judge, involved in every little aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Don't do it, please.
So I think we're pretty clear today.
I think we
Get
are.
some powers of attorney, avoid guardianship. So I hope you feel like you've learned a little something from Aging Insight today. You know, we're not here to scare you. We're just here to give you that information so that you have the tools and you are armed with information so that you can retire and you can plan for yourself with peace of mind. So we'll be back next week with another episode of Aging Insight. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Join Domino Federal Credit Union today. If you live, work, worship, or attend school in Bowie, Cass, Marion, or Miller counties, you can become a member of Domino Federal Credit Union. Need a low-cost loan? Personal, auto, motorcycle, boat, RV, vacation, real estate. We take care of all your loan needs. Make your life easier. Join Domino Federal Credit Union today. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Why pay full price for steel? At Tri-State Discount Steel in Texarkana, you'll find thousands of shapes and sizes of surplus or used steel for half the price of new steel. Need steel tubing or pipe? We've got it. Steel gates, beams, angles, and diamond plate. Tri-State Discount Steel has that too. Every steel section for the professional and the home handyman. And if you need custom cutting or welding, our team is prepared to help you fabricate your project. Tri-State Discount Steel, 1701 East 9th Street in Texarkana.